Okay, now we'll take a quick look at the different filter types. I'm going to demonstrate these using two analog oscillators. You're hearing now, I'll detune them slightly to fatten up the sound a little bit. And in fact, maybe I'll tune one down an octave. Okay, so we'll use that as our raw sound, and we'll run it through several of the filters to give you an idea of how those work and what they sound like. So I'm going to keep adding things into this filter 1 slot, but just know as you're watching this video that those same filters can be added down here to the filter 2 section, or over here to the global filter 3 section, which is after all of these other devices, the envelope generators and this amplifier and shaper, which is kind of a distortion unit that you can also add to your sound. Okay, if you this synthesizer looks really intimidating at first, but if you just take a deep breath and kind of look at the little arrows that are drawn or painted, if you will, on the surface here, you can kind of understand the signal flow. So to route these oscillators to this filter, I have to turn on these little lights here. If I wanted to route one to oscillator or filter 1 and the second one to filter 2, I would turn on the number 2 light down here by filter 2. And of course I'd have to add a filter to that position. But so for this demonstration, I'm going to route the output of both oscillators to filter 1. Let's take a look at some filters. We'll start with the one at the top, low pass ladder. That's something you're familiar with already from working with Subtractor. It's a low pass filter. You can choose different cutoff slopes. How dramatically the harmonics above the cutoff point are filtered out. So I'm going to leave it at that default setting. And cutoff frequency, since this is a low pass, if I put the cutoff frequency all the way down, most of the frequencies are being filtered out and only the very lowest are passing through. So it's a dark, dull, muted sound. As I raise that, it gets brighter and brighter. Put it somewhere in the middle, and we'll talk quickly about resonance just as a review. Resonance, you'll remember, boosts the frequencies right at the cutoff point. So it creates a little bump in our filter cutoff slope. It also can produce kind of a whistling sound. We call that self-oscillation of the filter. And we can create some classic synthesizer filter sweep sounds by starting with a fairly low cutoff frequency and a high resonance. Play a note and then adjust the cutoff frequency, and you can get that filter sweep sound. And we'll often do a filter sweep rather than twisting the knob by hand, which can be done. We'll sometimes use an LFO or even a modulation envelope to cycle through that cutoff frequency for us. So as we play notes, we hear that sweeping. Okay, so that's the low pass filter. Let's look at some others. State variable just lets us choose different types of filters right in the same little unit. The default is set to a low pass filter. I can choose a band pass. Band pass will filter out both the lowest frequencies of the harmonics and the highest at the same time. And typically a band pass filter will let you choose wider or narrower bands. Again, the area between the upper and lower settings are frequencies that are passing through. Okay, and you can, on some bandpass filters, you can adjust the width of the band and then you can move that band up or down through the harmonic content, the different harmonics of the sound. A high-pass filter works in just the opposite manner that a low-pass does. As I bring the cutoff frequency all the way down, I'm hearing no frequencies filtered out. Everything is passing through. As I raise the cutoff, I'm filtering out the lowest frequencies first, and the high frequencies continue to pass through unfiltered. So the sound gets thinner and tinnier, if you will, as I raise the cutoff frequency on a high-pass filter. None of the bassy sound is getting through unless I lower the cutoff. And there's a resonance setting there, so you can get some of the same sort of filter sweep effects. All right, next we have a notch filter. A notch is like the opposite of a band pass. Think of a notch as being a narrow band, but instead of that narrow band of frequencies passing through in a notch filter, that narrow band is being cut out of the sound, and everything above and below passes through, and we hear them. So again, that's a notch filter. Let's go ahead and move on. I don't want to get too bogged down here. Comb filter. The best way I can describe a comb filter, it's kind of like multiple bands of filtering happening at the same time. So imagine, 4 stripes going across the harmonic content and alternating between stuff that passes through, stuff that's filtered out. That's kind of what a comb filter is. And one of the neat things about a comb filter is when you move those bands up and down. That's a real kind of interesting phasey sort of sound, almost like a phase shifter or a device like that that guitar players might be familiar with. And then finally, let's look at the formant filter. Now, you might not know this, but your human body has a formant filter. My voice, I'm using a formant filter right now. That formant filter is my larynx, the inside of my mouth, my lips, and tongue. When I change the shape of that resonating cavity that is my throat and my larynx and mouth, I'm creating different formants. So a formant filter is obviously an artificial electronic device, but what it does is it kind of mimics those vowel sounds that we can make with our mouth. Try this little experiment. I'm going to say that the vowel sound A, and then while I continue to make sound, I'm going to change to oo and A, E, A, O, oo. Listen. A, O. The sound never stopped. I was singing a tone, and so the air is still going. My vocal cords are still vibrating all the way through that, but I'm changing the vowel sound just by changing the shape of my larynx. A formant filter will do the same sort of thing. You can adjust either an X or a Y axis with these sliders, or you can just grab that little dot in the middle and move it around. I'm going to play a note and move that around, and you'll see what I mean. Sounds like O here. Sounds like E there. O. So yeah, kind of a fun filter, formant filter. And then finally the last setting removes the filter at all the way. Okay, so that's it for our short little tutorial on filters.